In Mark 2:16, we see that the scribes and the Pharisees become furious at Jesus for this very reason. Mark 2:16, let's read. Kai hoi grammateis ton pharisaian, kai dontes hoti esiei metaia ton hamartalon kai telonon, elegontois mathetais autu, hoti metaton telonon kai hamartalon esiei. So the verse is kind of long, but is made up of very simple sentences. So it starts with the usual kai, which is a coordinating conjunction that we find so many times, means and. Then you have the subject, which is right here, hoi grammateis. So this is the subject. And then you have this genitive here, genitive plural, which specify which type of grammateis these were. It's a partitive genitive. We're going to see what that means. And then you have another kai, coordinating conjunction, and then you have this participle, idontes. This is a participle, which is connected to the subject. So this is related to hoi grammateis. Hoi grammateis, idontes. Idontes what? So this hoti is another preposition, which means that. Okay. All right. So it's a preposition that introduces a clause. And you have the verb of the clause. So this is the verb of the clause introduced by the preposition hoti. And then you have this long prepositional phrase that you have introduced by this preposition, meta, that wants the genitive. You see here the first genitive. So this is the first object of the prepositional phrase. And this is the second object, also in genitive, of the prepositional phrase. So this preposition holds two objects, ton, hamartalon, kai, telonon, kai again, and. Okay. And finally, we find the verb. This is the main verb of the sentence, which is again connected to the subject, hoi grammateis. So it's hoi grammateis, subject, elegon, verb. Then you have this dative, plural. It indicates who the Pharisees were talking to, so dative plural. And the usual autu, which is the genitive singular of the personal pronoun, literally of him, which is another way of saying his. Okay, we've seen it many times. And then you have this direct speech, which Mark reports, which is the exact words that the Pharisees speak. Okay, and it's actually a question. You see this semicolon here. This is the Greek way of putting a question mark, and this hoti, which is basically the same here, hoti, the same preposition, in this case introduces an interrogative question. So we're going to translate it with why. In this case means why. In this case means that. In this case means why. So why, and the verb of the question is again essay, which you may see is exactly the same verb that you have in a clause. It's exactly the same. It's ca. So this is the verb of the interrogative. Okay. The subject, of course, is Jesus. And then you have, again, this prepositional phrase that, as you can see, reflects exactly the same prepositional phrase in the previous sentence. So, meta ton telonon kai hamartalon. The only difference is that now they're switched around. So first, the hamartalon are mentioned, and then the telonon. But now in the second time, they're switched around, but the prepositional phrase means exactly the same thing. All right, so now that we understand this, let's start translating. So, kai and hoi grammatei. So this is a nominative case, masculine, plural. So it's the subject. Hoi is the definite article in the nominative masculine plural. So it means the grammates. Those were the scribes, right? Which comes from the root gramma, which means letters, right? So those were the ones that were in charge of interpreting the scriptures, what is written, right? is the same root of the English word grammar. Okay, so the scribes, and then you have this genitive, which literally means of the. Ton is the definite article, genitive plural. So this is genitive plural, masculine. Okay, and Pharisaean are the Pharisees. So technically, this expression means the scribes of the Pharisees. So what Mark wants to tell us is that there were also not only the sinners, not only the tax collector, not only the disciples there dining and eating with Jesus, but also some scribes. They were part of the sect of the Pharisees, right? So we can translate this as and the scribes among the Pharisees, or the scribes who were also Pharisees, or simply the scribes of the Pharisees. Another way could be the scribes and the Pharisees. I mean, we understand what that means, okay? So, and the scribes of the party of the Pharisees, I think that's the most accurate translation. And then you have this other kai. This looks like a repetition, right? But in this case, so kai can have two meanings, right? One is simply and the other meaning is also or as well, okay, or to, okay. And I think this is or even, okay, even. These are all meanings that sometimes kai can have. And I think this is the case because what Mark is trying to say here is that, again, not only the sinners, the tax collectors, and the disciples were there with Jesus reclining at the table, but also them, right? So also them. So I think we could translate this, and the scribes of the party of the Pharisees uh, seeing also or as well that or hoti that, and now the subject which is understood is Jesus, that Jesus is ca. Now the verb ca is a simple present indicative, third person singular, and just means eating, to eat. So he eats. Okay, so literally that he eats. Okay, you see how Mark jumps from the past tense, the aorist, to the present tense. This is typical of Mark because he every time he uses the present tense is because he wants to make the action more vivid for the reader. Okay, seeing as well that he, Jesus, eats, right, as if the action is happening right now under our eyes. Meta ton hamartalon kai telonon. Very simple. The preposition meta can have many meaning, but when it's followed by a genitive, like in this case, you see this on. This is a clear sign of a genitive case in the masculine plural. Okay, means with. Okay, so meta plus genitive means with. So Jesus eats with whom? With the hamartalon, the sinners, kai telonon, the tax collectors. All right. So when they see that he eats with the sinners and the tax collector, elegon. Now this is the verb lego, which we have encountered so many times. It just means to say, the verb to say. So in this particular case, you see this epsilon in front. It indicates an imperfect tense. So you see Mark jumps from the present indicative to the imperfect. It literally means they were saying. They were saying. It indicates an action that is continues. They would continually say, right? They were mumbling, they were asking, they couldn't understand why Jesus possibly could sit down and eat with all these sinners. So they were saying, and then the dative to the, tois is the definite article, dative plural, masculine plural. We already found this word, mathetais are the disciples. This is the same expression we found in Mark 2:15, so it's exactly the same thing, to the disciples of him, so to his disciples. And now let's see what they ask. It's a question. We said this is a question mark. What do they ask? Hoti, why? Why in the world is ca again? So in the present tense, because Mark wants us to be there, right? And experiencing in front of our eyes the dialogue that is going on between the disciples of Jesus and the Pharisees. And the Pharisees say, why is he eating, right? This is the present tense, it's CA. Why is he eating metaton telonon, kai hamartalon, with the tax collector and the sinners? So putting everything together, we can translate Mark 2:16 as follows. And the scribes, excuse me, of the party of the Pharisees, seeing as well that he eats with the sinners and the tax collector, were saying to his disciples, why is he eating with the tax collector and sinners? So, question for you today. If Jesus had to come today and start eating with sinners and tax collectors and prostitutes, would you be scandalized as the Pharisees were?